Well, good afternoon, everybody. And it's an honor, really. It's an honor, it's a pleasure to be talking to you this afternoon. And I thank you, Hong Kong U Business faculty, for the opportunity. Now, when I was thinking about what I'm going to say today, when I was doing that last week, my head of PR kindly advised me that maybe I should consider using the Asia Miles tagline, "Life Rewarded," as a title for my talk. One day, as May pointed, you will soon be in the C-suite, and when you become a CEO or a CFO or a CIO or whatever, you'll realize that as a chief officer, you don't make executive decisions. You just listen to what your staff tells you. And this is exactly what I've done with the title of my talk. At Asia Miles, your life is rewarded by earning air tickets, dining vouchers, hotel vouchers, etc., if you earn enough miles. Well, that's all well and good. But today, I want to share with you some of my humble views on how we should lead a rewarding life, how we actually should live a life which is well rewarded. Which brings the question, what is a rewarding life? Is it becoming someone rich and famous like Mark Zuckerberg? Or is it becoming someone powerful like Barack Obama? Or better still, to have a rewarding life, why don't I just marry a trophy wife or a trophy husband? Well, to me, a rewarding life is one where you actually live to your full potential. You can use your talent to benefit yourself and to benefit the people around you. And to me, the first thing, in order to live a rewarding life, in order to live a life that you can live to your full potential, the first thing that we need to learn is to self-reflect. What is self-reflection, you're going to ask me? Well, let me start by telling you what self-reflection is not. Self-reflection is not about daydreaming. Self-reflection is not thinking how good-looking or how smart you are. Self-reflection is actually objectively assessing yourself and the situation around you so you are better able to, with confidence, decide what is best for your life. Now, nowadays, a lot of people confuse activity with productivity. They run very fast, multitask left, right, and center, but to where? For what? Have they ever sat back and thought, why am I doing this? Where am I going? Do I want to go there? Do I know where I want to go? Remember, activity with no purpose is a drain on life. Activity with no purpose is a waste of your time. Let me share with you a personal story. The year was 1998, and I was an audit manager at Pricewaterhouse. And one day I got a call from a headhunter, unsolicited. And he asked me if I would be interested in a position with Goldman Sachs. Now, almost without thinking, I said yes. And after 9 rounds of interviews, I got the job. The next 2 years were probably the toughest in my career. There was nothing wrong with Goldman Sachs, but there was everything wrong with me. Now just bear that story in mind for the time being while I come back to self-reflection. So you ask, okay, I will self-reflect, but where do I start? How do I do it? Well, maybe I can share with you some of the experiences I've had with self-reflection. The first thing about self-reflection is to understand yourself. Know who you are. And this is unfortunately not as straightforward as it sounds. 1, think about what drives you. What is your passion? What is it that is something that makes you feel excited when you wake up at 5 a.m. every morning? If money is not a problem, what would you do for a living? Howard Schultz, the CEO and founder of Starbucks, he gets to the office at 6 o'clock every morning. Cristiano Ronaldo, who plays for Real Madrid, he trains 5 hours a day, 4 times a week. How do they do it? It's the passion for what they do. Passion is the only thing that can get you through the long-term hurdles that you're going to face. It's going to be the only thing that will help you succeed in life. Go find your passion. Think about your strengths and weaknesses. Oftentimes you hear people say, work on your weaknesses. I would actually argue work on your strengths. Because if you think about it, you spend 80% of your time working on your weaknesses for a 20% improvement. Or you spend 20% of your time on your strengths for an 80% improvement. What would you rather do? Know what you're good at and what you're not. Because you're going to live your life much more efficiently that way. Another one. Think about your emotions. Analyze your emotions. Understand why you feel the way you do. Is the way you feel driven by your ego, jealousy, or your personal agenda? For a long time in my life, I compare myself in almost everything I did. At school, I would compare my exam results, my sporting results, my girlfriend results. At work, I would compare my salary levels, my promotion levels. Outside work, I start comparing the friends that I have, places that I go, the car that I drove, the house that I lived in. And I felt miserable because I would always be inadequate one way or the other. The thing that really ticked me off is that whenever I see someone who I felt only had an IQ of about 20, and he's the senior VP of some big company just because his daddy owns the company, while it's me, poor Edwin here, slaving away as a junior analyst. But eventually, you start to think about, why do I feel that way? And you find out that it is just ridiculous that I was feeling that way. I mean, imagine, if my father was Li Ka-shing, I could be more successful than Richard Lee. Who knows? But that's not the point. The point is, so long as I focus my energy on such negative thing, it will just drive me down, and the reality doesn't change a bit. So why not I focus my energy, focus my emotions on something which is positive? Why don't I focus on doing the best I can with the cards I've been dealt with? Because at the end of the day, I'm only accountable to myself. So understand your emotions, and you have a much better control over yourself and the situation around you. Secondly, or rather, let me come back to Secondly, goals. Another part of your self-reflection is to know your goal. Find your goal. Remember I said about passion. Passion is a thing that drives you forward. With passion, you will have a goal. Think about what your goal is going to be. Project yourself 10, 20 years out. Be as elaborate with that dream as you can. And then work backwards to the steps that you need to take to reach that goal. Because those steps will become the priorities in your life. A lot of people, and even companies, they often have the top 10, top 15, top 20 priorities, and they're all important. I'm telling you, that's a waste of time. Because realistically, you can only manage 3 or max 4 priorities at any one time. So rank your priorities in terms of how important they are to achieving your final goal. And everything else, no matter how important they seem to be right now, will just fall away because they don't contribute to your final goal. Another thing about self-reflection is to understand your values. What values are important to you? Is it integrity, honesty, fairness, or maybe your family? Your family always comes first. Know what your values are. Know what values are important to you, because values reflect who you are. And your values will become the moral compass that you have to help you guide your decision-making throughout your life. Coming back to my Goldman Sachs story, don't get me wrong, Goldman is a great firm. It's a fantastic firm with highly intelligent, highly driven people. It's just that I wasn't cut out for the role I was asked to do, that particular role I was asked to do at Goldman Sachs. And the reason for that is, the reason for my accepting the job was that I never took the time to self-reflect before I accepted it. I never really thought, am I going to be passionate about this role at Goldman? I never really thought whether that particular role was leveraging on my strengths or was it leveraging on my weaknesses. I never thought whether that particular position fits into my overall career goal. I didn't even have a career goal at the time. I based my decision on my feelings. And my feeling was one of being flattered because I, Edwin Morris, was good enough to be hired by Goldman Sachs. And I tell you what, I was at PwC at the time, and amongst all the audit managers, I felt like the chosen one because I was the one who was getting to Goldman Sachs. And the result was a detour in my career. In hindsight, unnecessarily. So, with self-reflection, you'll be able to understand yourself better, you know what your goal is, you will figure out how to get there, and you know what values are important to you. You are in much better control of your life. Without self-reflection, you will simply drift to whatever circumstances take you. You'll make decisions based on feelings, based in a vacuum, and you open yourself up to nasty surprises. So much about self-reflection. Another thing which I think it's important to living your life to your full potential is risk-taking. Now by that I don't mean reckless abandon or putting all your money on the stock market, although having said that, you probably would have done quite well from it recently. What I meant is taking a risk to live the life that you want to get to the place you want to be. Now people in general don't like risks, and that's because they only focus on the short-term impact of risk-taking. Say for example, you're in a large company, you earn a decent pay, but at the back of your mind there's this little idea which you think is the next big thing, and you're itching to go out on your own and test this little idea that you have. And so you start to weigh up the risks. First of all, you start looking at the cost, the immediate cost of taking the risk. You say, okay, if I resign tomorrow and I start out on my own, what if I fail? I'll have no job, no money coming in, the job market's really tough. Man, I'll be an idiot. How am I going to explain this to my friends and family? And then you start to look at the immediate benefit of not taking the risk. You say, well, I still have my job. The pay's all right. Money still keeps coming in. It's a good company. And they have sort of made some vague indication of a career path for me. I'm not completely happy and I still want to do my own thing one day, but maybe now is not a good time. Maybe I should stay put for the time being and see how things pan out. Yeah, that would be the sensible option. But is it? Apple Computers was founded in 1976 by three people. They're Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and a gentleman called Ronald Wayne. Now, Ronald Wayne was 42 at the time, and the other two Steves were in the early 20s. And Ronald was brought in to look at all the legal and admin stuff for the new company. And for that, he received a 10% equity stake in the new venture. 2 weeks after the company was founded, Ronald Wayne sold his entire stake, his entire 10% stake. And his reason? He felt he was too old to take the risk. How much did Ronald Wayne get for his 10% stake? $800 US. How much is Apple worth today? $700 billion US. The reality is, the cost of not taking a risk and the benefit of taking the risk can happen much further down the road in future. So next time when you think about risks, don't only think about the here and now. Think about the future as well. In business, as in life, we don't take risks as much as manage risks. Richard Branson, in his autobiography, he always talks about managing his downside risks. And this is exactly what successful people do. They look at what the risks are, have plans to reduce those risks, to address those risks, and they move on. So, you'll say to me, Edwin, fine, I'm all set to go, I'm ready to take some risks. Where do I start? Well, here are some pointers that you may like to consider. 1, find your passion, find your dream, find something that is worth your while to take a risk. Because if you don't have passion for something that you're going to take a risk for, it's not going to work out. It's literally not worth the risk. And how do you find your passion? Self-reflection. 2, think about the future now. You have your passion, dream your goal. Dream as big as you want. Then from that goal, work backwards and find out what the steps are to get to there. Sounds familiar? Find out the steps you need to get there, and from there you will know the risks that you will encounter along the way. 3, address those risks. Take baby steps. Don't jump in with both feet if you're not clear what you're jumping into. Otherwise, you can only crash and burn. Realize that there's a process to everything and you just need to be patient. Realize that failure is inevitable, but it's part of learning. If you just remember the principle that first you learn to crawl, before you learn to walk, before you learn to run, you'll be able to sail through all the hurdles as you go along. A lot of people will think that the company I work for, Swire, is very risk averse, very conservative. I actually tend to think otherwise. Now, Swire is a 200-year-old family company. Today it's into its 7th generation. And arguably, it is now the most successful it has ever been throughout its entire history. How do they do it? Swire was founded in Liverpool as a little trading company in 1816. And in the late 1800s, they moved their business to the Far East, and they have a fleet of ships doing trading from as far north as Japan and China to as far south as Australia and the South Pacific Islands. As they were operating their own fleet of ships, they discovered that, hey, I need someone to do my repairs and maintenance for these ships. So what do? They founded their own dockyard in Quarry Bay in Hong Kong. Also, at the same time, they discovered that the sugar trade was very vibrant between the raw materials country of Indonesia and the Philippines and the consumer market in China and Japan. So in order to capitalize on it, they built a sugar refining factory in Hong Kong, at the time the most sophisticated factory in the world. So what happened to these two businesses? The shipping business eventually subsided, and so they don't need a dockyard anymore. But the property on which the dockyard is built was turned into a residential project, which is today's Taikoo Shing. Taikoo Shing is the first project of Swire Properties, which owns Pacific Place, City Plaza, and Citygate in Hong Kong, and also has retail and office complexes in Guangzhou, Beijing, Shanghai, Chengdu in China, and also Miami in the US. What about that sugar factory? They discovered that their biggest customer for the sugar is actually all the drinks manufacturer. Hence, we have Swire Beverages, who today is one of the largest bottlers in the Coca-Cola empire. The brand name that is probably most well known in the Swire portfolio is Cathay Pacific. Cathay Pacific was bought by Swire soon after the Second World War. And if you think about it, it is just a logical extension. Remember, I was telling you that Swire already ran a fleet of ships. They already know a lot about sea traffic. This was just an extension into air traffic, in which they saw a lot of opportunities. From the skills that they harnessed from Taikoo Dockyard came what is known today as Hong Kong Aircraft Engineering, HKU, which is probably the best aircraft maintenance company in the world. So you see, the way that Swire did it was that every expansion of their business was a very logical extension of what they already knew at the time. They weren't really taking a risk as much as making a smart bet based on what they know very well. And to me, that is a very intelligent way of taking risks. Now finally, I'd like to congratulate all of you for achieving what you have. You are indeed a group of blessed people in this world. You have the talent and the capability to get to where you are today, and your future will be bright. However, you also have a responsibility to the society you live in. A lot of people know how to make money, and so will you. But there aren't enough people who know how to make a difference. Use your intelligence. Get to know yourself. Dream that dream, create that goal. Take a risk and make that dream come true. And bring people along with you. You're going to need people to help you succeed. Be humble to others, but be true to yourself. For how rewarding your life is depends on how you reward the life of other people around you. And with that, thank you.